Hey, this is Claude, and this is my submission video of Mystical Ninja starring Goemon for AGDQ 2018. So, the Goemon series isn't super popular, at least in America, but I feel like the speedrun of this game has got to be one of the most entertaining and just frankly one of the most bizarre speedruns I've ever encountered in all of speedrunning. And it's one of those games that kind of has a little bit of everything. This game came out in 1997, before Ocarina of Time, but this game has a lot of similarities to both the game itself being played casually and the speedrun in terms of all the crazy stuff you have to do. Speaking of which, here's the first trick in the game called Fuji Skip, where you just gotta get between the fence and the sign, and you just hop up to the skybox above the stage and suddenly you're across the world. I also did another glitch called a Mokkori slash, but that's not required to progress with the run. I'll explain that in a little bit more detail later in the run. So normally in this game you're supposed to go to another area called Mount Fuji and go power up your weapon, get a chain pipe so you can cross these star blocks in order to enter the first dungeon of the game, which is a castle. But yeah, you can just skip all that, and you're going to be seeing a lot of stuff being skipped in Goemon because you can just do whatever you want in this game. It's kind of a recurring theme. There are a few event triggers that you have to hit and a few power-ups you have to get, but for the most part you're going to be skipping a large part of the game via numerous crazy and bizarre glitches. So right here you see me farming Rio, and unfortunately that is required because there are two events that require a certain amount of money in order to progress. The first is you have to buy a quality cucumber for a kappa, and that costs 800 Rio. And you also have to talk to a witch at the top of a mountain, which costs 300 Rio. So you just take care of all the money grinding right here at the start of the game, and then for the most part you don't have to worry about it for the rest of the run. It actually depends on how good your money grind ends up being. You can see me here missing a few coins. That's not, of course, what you want to see. But if you have like a perfect money grind, you're going to end up with 1120 Rio, but honestly, you just have like close to 1080, like 1090, it's fine. And if you get lucky on enemy drops, then you can go with even less. Also, at the start of each room, you see Goemon do like a little jump. That's because whenever you enter a room, Goemon, or I guess any character, is just going to automatically walk forward on his own. And most of the time, the character's not going to be going the direction you want to be going. So you can cancel that automatic walk with a jump and head in the proper direction. Yeah, go with one more round of pots, and then the money grind's going to be over. This money grind is honestly non-trivial. Like, optimal jumps to get all the coins, and just even hitting the pot can be a struggle sometimes. Fortunately, it's very early on in the game. Like, right there you see me miss the pot. But I end up with 1090 Rio, which is pretty good. So this is another trick called Rio hovering. Here again, you're supposed to use a chain pipe to cross across the blocks, but by just jumping and spamming the Rio throw button, you can hover across small gaps, and it's one of the main reasons to use Goemon in the speedrun. This is the first kill-all room of the game. Fortunately, enemy movements and starting locations are all fixed, so there's no RNG or anything like that. But some of the kill-all rooms can be pretty technical. There's a room later on in Ghost Toys that's infamous for being one of the most difficult rooms in the game to kill all the enemies in. The enemies are not what you'd expect them to be. I think right here you're going to see an example of just how like weird the angles and invisible stuff in this game is. Like, sometimes your movement is just blocked for no reason if you approach things at a awkward angle. That's part of what makes this game so great. This is another, that's not even a kill-all, this is just a, I think, kill a certain amount of enemies room. There's a glitch in this room where if you kill the last two enemies on the same frame, you can skip the animation right here of the key spawning. I didn't get in this run, but funnily enough I did end up getting it in my PB. Now speaking of which, the time on this video is going to be 1:17:06. I'm commentating this run even though I ended up getting a PB of a low 1:16 later on, just because this run looks a little bit cleaner. And also I didn't end up having a recording of the 1:16, it was a local recording. But that run mostly ended up being faster due to hitting a lot of one-frame tricks, even though the overall gameplay I felt was a little bit worse. So Oedo Castle in general is somewhat straightforward compared to playing it casually. You don't really have access to too many techniques that allow you to do large sequence breaks other than the Ryo hover, which you're going to see again right here. That trick isn't particularly difficult to execute, although there are some tight Ryo hovers that aren't used in this run. Also, here I'm going to talk about edge running. This is the primary method of like movement tech in the game. Whenever you run along a wall, you get a slight speed boost. So whenever possible, whenever my character is close to a wall, I'll be attempting to do an edge run. But there are some exceptions where it's not always faster. Like sometimes it's better to just take a perfect line and not even bother with edge running. It's just on a case-by-case basis. This is the first kind of hard trick in the game. You kind of have to do like a weird angled jump to get up there. Saves like maybe 1 or 2 seconds. But this is an actually difficult trick. This is the hardest section to do without the chain pipe. This is just called chain pipe skip. There I had to bait an enemy to shoot a projectile out and time my jumps in such a way that I get boosted up onto the ledge. And then for the most part, I don't have to worry about not having the chain pipe anymore. Which is a good thing, because if you actually go and do that other area that the game expects you to do and get the chain pipe, it takes like, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 minutes, something like that. I guess here I'll talk about health management as well. Later on in what ends up being the second dungeon you do in this run, you want to do a few death warps, and you don't get like health restores or anything like that from beating bosses, so you want to manage your health in such a way that you'll have just enough hearts to survive the second dungeon up until a point where you want to die and then respawn at the beginning of the room. Here I'm doing another glitch, which is the Baron tech skip. This is not one frame, unlike other tech skips in the run. You kind of have to manage the camera in such a way where you like zoom in, zoom out while riding the elevator, and then you can just progress without having to read the dialogue and just go straight into the boss. I was advancing the dialogue there, but that was just for a visual cue on when to change my direction. You actually have to do a lot of kind of difficult off-screen inputs in order to enter the boss room. It's really not too hard as long as you do a setup, but it's definitely non-trivial. So this is the first boss of the run, Congo, and he can be kind of hard to kill quickly in the speedrun. So normally he's always supposed to fire off his lasers whenever you like do a real hit to him, like you see him explode a little bit. But if you manage to hit him before his laser cycle completes turning around, then you'll just skip the laser respawning and be able to hit him immediately. I believe in this run I end up skipping the 2 laser respawns, which is what you want to see. So even though you hear the sound effect of him taking damage and you see him glowing, you can only have to hit him 5 times, I believe, in order to register like a true hit where he explodes a little bit. And some of these hits where Goemon is invisible is kind of tough. That ended up being a good fight. And this is the first miracle item. Even though you can skip a lot of stuff in Goemon, you do have to collect all 4 miracle items in order to access the final dungeon of the game. There's no getting around that as far as we're aware. I guess I should talk a little bit about the story of this game. I guess I'll go into more detail later, but Japan's been invaded by people from outer space, or Europe, or something, one of the two. And the Lord of Oedo got captured, and we just rescued him. So that's pretty cool. Now he's going to give us an item that allows us to get to the next area of the game. the bridge crossing thing. I forget what it's actually called. Super Pass? Yeah, Super Pass. And then at the end it asks you if you want to save. I'm not actually going to be saving if this run does get accepted into AGDQ, but I will have a lot of backup saves in the event this game crashes, or soft locks in a way I didn't expect, or if something terrible goes on. I should probably talk about map glitch, but I kind of actually messed it up here. You're supposed to map glitch this room, but I guess I just forgot or something. But I'll talk about that in a little bit later. So something that's kind of traditional for Goemon runners is to try and move your weapon in tune with the music. I guess I ended up not doing it here either. But I'll definitely be doing it later on in the run. It's kind of one of the trademarks of the Goemon run, in order to keep your swag levels high. I'm going to be map glitching here, so yeah, I guess I'll talk about map glitch now. So on the Japanese version of the game, this is exclusive to the Japanese version, if you hold down the map button, which is C right, before you load an area, you will just unload all the actors in the room, which can be, you know, water, all enemies, certain objects that block your path, etc. And you might be like, wow, this glitch sounds really powerful, and yeah, it is. In fact, you're going to be seeing it used here to skip the first impact boss of the game, which is kind of what this game is known for, is the epic giant robot fights. There are 2 giant robot fights later on that you can't skip, but this one, via the power map glitch, can just be like crossed over with no problem. So you might be wondering why you don't just use map glitch everywhere then, just, you know, despawn everything. Well, unfortunately, if you use it in dungeons and towns, for the most part, when you try and load the next area, the game will just soft lock and you can't progress. But you can use it for the most part pretty much anywhere you want in the overworld sections, such as this. And in most sections where you don't actually like open a door, you just like go into a raw loading trigger, which is like, you know, like a black void or some such. It's kind of hard to explain, but pretty much whenever I'm on the overworld, I'm going to be holding map glitch. So right around here is where the first impact boss fight would start, but yeah, it's not going to happen. Here I actually start to change the weapon to the tune of the music a little bit more. Musical cue there when you enter the door is kind of tells you how good your walk is. I think that's the longest or the biggest room in the game that you actually do in the speedrun. So here you meet Lady Yae, the Kunoichi, female ninja. Also, it's worth pointing out at this point in the game, you can actually play as 2 different characters. You can play as Goemon, of course. You can play as Abysmaru, Goemon's friend, and then after this cutscene, you'll be able to play as Yae. But there's really no point in playing as any character other than Goemon, because the other characters don't have their special abilities yet. Like all the characters are pretty similar, if you don't count their special abilities. The hitboxes on their weapons are different. I think characters have different heights, but they all run at the same speed, which is obviously the most important thing for a speedrun. So you just stick with Goemon until you need Yae's ability, which she gets at about 20-ish minutes, 20-ish minute mark. And you end up using it a few minutes later. So coming up is the most famous trick in the run. It's not going to look too difficult, but trust me, if you try to speedrun this game, this is the trick that will give you the most trouble. It's definitely the hardest trick to learn, and it's very difficult to get this trick first try. So what you have to end up doing here is you kind of have to get Goemon stuck in the ladder, then you have to do a kind of awkward input on the control stick, and then you have to press the attack button on the right frame, and that will give you a Mokkori slash that allows you to zip across the map and skip the guard, Benkei, who's guarding the bridge. There, it didn't take me too many tries to get it. It is possible to get it, you know, first try, second try, whatever, but, like, honestly, even getting it in less than 10 tries is pretty good. I don't think anyone would be happy as long as they just got it under 10 tries, no matter how good your time is. There are, so if you watch the tasks for this game, the task's primary method of movement is the Mokkori slash, because obviously it doesn't matter if it's one frame. But that is one of the slashes that you absolutely have to do in an 80% speedrun. Because if you do not do that trick, then you have to do a side quest where you do fishing, and it's really long. You have to catch like 3 different types of fish. And then once you're done with that, you have to do a mini game with Benkei where you throw barrels at him, and then there's a long cutscene afterwards, and it just takes forever. And a lot of people who try to learn speedrun this game, like, you know, they'll get to through the first 15 minutes, you know, no problem. You'd be having some issues with chain pipe skip. And then they get the Benkei, and it's like, wow, this is pretty real. I definitely put a lot of time into practicing that trick, and ended up paying off. So now we're progressing with the story a bit. We're going to take a Symmetra's teleporter to teleport straight to Hanzo's play of the game right here, Spirit Dragon. Nah, we have to, this dragon is like terrorizing the town or the kids or something, and we have to go stop it, so... And Goemon's a nice guy, so of course he's gonna do that. So which enemies that spawn on the dragon are actually random. There's not a lot of RNG in this run, and what RNG there is usually isn't actually that impactful for the speedrun, fortunately. Like here you just kind of have to react to what enemies you get. If you get the chomping guys, you have to jump and attack them, but if you get the little orbs, you can just kind of keep on running. I guess in this run I end up getting a lot of chompy guys. So right here is the first tech skip of the run. I end up not even, like, going for it, I think. But if you press start on the right frame, right before you would get dialogue with something, you will just skip all the dialogue completely. Like, my PB ended up getting this, and saves, like, I don't know, maybe 15-ish seconds. This one saves a lot. Most of the dialogue skips don't really save too much time. It's mostly this one, and dialogue skip, unfortunately, at the very end of the game. So yeah, there's a lot of one-frame tricks in Goemon. There's Mokkori slash, of course, and there are dialogue skips. But, you know, this is an N64 game. It doesn't run at 60 FPS like, you know, Donkey Kong Country games or something like that. So hitting the frames are definitely a lot easier than Super Nintendo games. Definitely possible for mere mortals to get most of the one-frame tricks in a single run. This is what my PB ended up doing. This boss, unfortunately, is not very interesting. This is definitely the most boring boss in the run. There's, like, no tech other than just hit him as soon as he stops flashing, and that's it. You can hit him with the Goemon's pipe, and it saves on Ryo, but if you take damage at all in this fight, sometimes your character will just glitch out, and you'll fall off the dragon, and you'll lose a billion. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but obviously whenever you use a Ryo, or a ranged attack, you're actually consuming money. So you kind of have to manage how many Ryo hovers you do, and how often you use Ryo to attack enemies, because like I said, there are 2 mandatory event triggers that require spending a certain amount of money. Alright, so we defeated the dragon. Technically we defeated the mind control device on the dragon, and this kid is the true form of the dragon. He gets up, he thanks us for rescuing him, he apologizes for what he did to the children, or whatever it is he did. I don't really recall the story too well in this game because I just, you know, just playing Japanese these days. But the great thing about this game is that it has a built-in laugh track, so even if you can't actually read the story, you just kind of make up your own story and laugh along with the laugh track. And honestly, whatever story you make up for this game probably isn't going to be too far off the real story. So as a reward for saving him, he's going to give us the flute, which is a very useful item in the speedrun, because it lets you warp to any area you've previously been to. You can actually skip getting the flute with a dialogue skip, but you definitely wouldn't want to do that in any run except for low percent, which I don't even think is a real category. I think the dialogue here is kind of funny. It's like Abysmario says he can play the flute, and Ye also says she can play the flute. But Goemon's like, nah, just give it to Ye. So we'll be using the flute soon, but first we're actually going to go back into the previous town to get the warp point set. So we'll warp back here later. And then we're going to climb these stairs to get another required power-up. And throughout the entirety of this climb, I'm going to be holding map glitch. If you don't hold map glitch, you actually have to fight enemies, and there's a bunch of rocks that try to crush you, and it's a mess, dude. Thanks to the powers of holding the map button before we load each room, don't have to worry about all that. Just focus on our movement. So this section of the run is probably the least interesting out of the entirety of the game. This would probably be where you'd read donations in an actual marathon run. Because once you get Abysmario's next power-up, the game gets kind of real, and there's really not too much downtime other than cutscenes and whatnot. So here you have to donate 5 Rio to the Money God, and he gives you the Fire Rio, which is required in order to access Ghost Toys dungeon, which is the next dungeon we're going to be doing. And it's also useful because it's the only item you get that does more damage than the normal weapon, which can be useful for one-shotting certain enemies and also doing more damage to a boss later on. So this is the first instance of warping. We're actually going to go warp to the town we just set the warp point in. Actually going to be warping to the other side of it. And now we have to continue on and go get an event trigger that will allow us to get Abysmario's next upgrade. And again, you're going to be map glitching pretty much the entirety of this walk. I try to move the weapon along with the music, so it's at least a little bit entertaining. That being said, there is a very cool trick in this screen. This is the only time you use this trick. And this is Time Stop, aka Zawardo, your fan of JoJo's. So what you do is you use the flute, and then you press Z when next to a ladder, and that cancels the flute animation, and time is stopped. Tokyo Tamare. And you want to do that because it minimizes the lag of the bridge falling down. Normally that bridge is supposed to fall apart when you cross it, and it's really laggy. But by using the time stop glitch, you can just cross it no problem. And crossing it isn't actually, too difficult, whatever. But the lag reduction is pretty real. I think it ends up saving like maybe 1 to 2 seconds, despite the fact that you have to go out of your way to perform the time stop glitch. Alright, so you can actually talk to this old guy or to the girl to the left of him. By the way, you have to talk to one of them, and they tell you that there is a man in Zazen Town that can help you get into the hot springs, which is where Ghost Toys Dungeon is located, which has the next miracle item. So we're going to be warping back to Zazen Town and going to find this man. You actually end up visiting Zazen Town 3 times in the run? Yeah, 3 times. It's kind of the hub town for where things happen. You can access a lot of different areas from this town. I believe, yeah, this is the first appearance of Abysamaru in the run. But even though we played 25 minutes without Abysamaru, you're going to be seeing quite a lot of him from this point forward. Because he is definitely the most broken character in the run. There you can see I was using map glitch even though I was in a town just because there wasn't actually any door opening. Here I think I do a little ladder zip to save like maybe 1 second. Oh, I don't even end up getting it, okay. Kind of similar to Benkei skip, you can just kind of like go behind ladders and that just zips you up. There you wouldn't be doing a Mokkori slash, you'd just be going straight to the top of the ledge, save a little bit of time. Alright, so now we're going to be doing a mini game to get Abysamaru's ability, which is going to be the Mini Abysamaru. In order to prove we can be small, we have to collect delicious sweets, 8 delicious sweets, in a cupboard. But someone's out to get us, and of course it's Mr. Saturn. I mean, who else would it be? Where the sweets drop is random, but as far as I'm aware, they always drop at the same intervals. There might be a little bit of randomness to that as well. And when Mr. Saturn opens up the cupboard, I think is random. Where the enemy spawn is definitely random. But overall, you don't end up losing that much time to randomness. There, I almost missed a sweet. Barely got it. If you do actually manage to miss a sweet, you will lose a significant amount of time. And if Mr. Saturn catches you, he gets really mad and he explodes the world. You can kind of see him doing it right there, but fortunately it didn't matter because that was the last sweet. So now we have Mini Abysamaru. Man oh man, this is a good ability. So in the normal game, you're just supposed to use that to get through small areas. Kind of like a Tiny's transformation, DK64. But it has an other property where if you walk forward, jump, and then do a 1-frame tap of the joystick, you can do a slide when you're transforming into Mini Abysamaru. And if you do that, you can just clip through walls, just like that. And you're going to be seeing a lot of that because it is the primary method of clipping and getting out of bounds in this game, which allows you to skip huge chunks of the game. So like this area right here, you're supposed to come back here when you have the 4th character, Sasuke, which isn't gotten in the 8% speedrun, with his double jump ability, and get the quality cucumber, which is what we just bought, that way. But you end up never getting the 4th character at all because every time you need his special abilities, you can substitute it with an Abysamaru slide. Which is quite fortunate because if you want to get that character, you'd have to do the entire Benkei minigame sequence. Which means, all the fishing and whatnot, so it's pretty fortunate this ends up working the way it does and makes the speedrun pretty cool and interesting. Because these Abysamaru slides are definitely not easy. There, that's not required to do anything. It's just you want to get out of small form kind of fast. You just do a slide. See, every time you just see me like jump around and just kind of not untransform or anything like that, it's just because I'm missing the inputs. You have to do quite a few slides in the 8% run. And honestly, like, there's a lot of slides you can do that just aren't done because they're not really worth it. They just save like a few seconds. But if you really get slides, you can just throw a lot of them in there and save billions. These slides are, for the most part, though, pretty much required. And unfortunately, even if you get a good slide, you can just end up being blocked like ended up happening there. You just don't clip, and all the Goemon, great Goemon scientists put together can't figure out why sometimes you just don't clip through a wall. And it's one of the great things about this run. So sometimes you don't clip. So here, you know, just clipping through walls in order to gain access to the camera early. The camera is another required item to get, because without the camera you cannot fight the boss of this dungeon, and you can't do a few of the kill-alls in this dungeon. And here we get blocked again. This section of the game, honestly, in like real RTA runs, is probably the most difficult, because you have to do so many slides in quick succession. And, you know, not only are you fighting the input of the slide, but you're also fighting the fact that you just sometimes might not even clip, and sometimes, like, right there, just miss the input. So here I'm sliding out of bounds, and getting blocked again, and finally make it through. Those slides don't save a lot of time, but if I didn't do them, I'd have to go underneath to the shogi tiles located in the water below. You know, that's slow, and you just want to go fast, you just want to clip through everything. And here you're holding map glitch to, so you don't have to do a kill-all here. You just kind of spawn on top of the lantern that's blocking the door. This kill-all you have to do because it gives you a key. It's the first instance of the camera. Whenever you take a picture of this Mario, all the ghosts become hittable. As far as I'm aware, there is no way to attack the ghost without using the camera. And yeah, remember when I talked about health management? This is kind of where it comes into play. I'm going to be doing the death warp pretty soon here. Ideally, you want to go in with maybe a heart and a half, maybe 1 heart, if you're really bold. But I play it pretty safe, and I usually go in with like a heart and a half, maybe 2 hearts. And if you, sometimes when you kill enemies, they'll just like drop health onto you, and they can kind of like screw up your health management. So you kind of have to be careful about that. So here I'm holding map glitch, even though if I wanted to exit the room normally, I'd have to go through a door and the game would soft lock. But by killing yourself, it kind of like resets the properties of the room. So you use map glitch, no problem. And when the room reloads, you can just go through the door. It ends up being a pretty decent death warp. Also, I should mention that Ghost Toys is arguably the hardest dungeon in the run. You can make an argument for Musical Castle as well, which is the final dungeon, and maybe Gourmet Sub, which is the 3rd dungeon you do in speedrun, but pound for pound, like, just the amount of slides you have to do in Ghost Toys, health management, all the kill-alls, especially the one towards the end, and the boss fights, if you want to get the quick kill, like, all of it adds up to a very difficult section of the run. And I think I got a pretty good Ghost Toys in this run. My PB did not, which is kind of why I'm showing off this video. Another great thing about this run is that there's a lot of alternate strategies that aren't like too different time-wise. Like the mainstream strategy here is actually to swim across the wall with Abyss and Mario. If I'm doing a different strat where I switch the Goemon and actually ride the tops and do a Rio hover here, which saves me time for having to switch characters later on, because I'm switching characters while the tops are just moving, and I'm just waiting around anyways. And then I'm also going to be able to Rio hover in the room coming up here. And also allows you to preserve a lot of health, which is good because there's a chance you'll die before you're able to do the next death warp. Which is coming up in about 2 minutes or so. Here you're supposed to use the camera to reveal the floor, to know where to go, but you can just memorize that, of course. It's actually kind of hard because that room is super laggy to just fall in the poison water anyways. Also, this section is really scary right here, and I probably wouldn't do this in a marathon because if you kind of approach the void where the door trigger is incorrectly, you'll open like the door in front of it, and because you're holding map glitch, the game will just soft lock. So you really have to be careful about how you do that section. Alright, this is the hardest kill-all in the game by far. This is billiards. So pretty much you have to aim your Rio very precisely and in a certain pattern way, And if you mess it up at all, you're gonna lose like 10 to 15 seconds. And if you're going for like an optimal death warp, you're only gonna have like half a heart here. And the billiard balls will just be going everywhere. And you can just die before you go to this room, which we do the second death warp in. I ended up getting a pretty good billiards there. But it's very easy to just make like one misstep and it's like, well, balls are going everywhere. What are you gonna do? With that, Ghost Toys is pretty much coming to a close. There's a slide you can do right here that only saves like maybe 1 to 2 seconds that I ended up not going for in this run. Take a picture while crouching just for swag. And it's time for the boss. It's a Darmania, I think? That's how you say his name. So just like every boss in this game, there's a little bit of tech. First you just have to take a picture so you're able to actually attack him. And then you're going to be wanting to go for triple hits in a few of these cycles. Normally you're only supposed to be able to hit him 2 times. Each time he's vulnerable when he shows his heart. But through careful timing and a little bit of a movement manipulation, you can get triple hits in certain phases. And at a few points in this fight I'm taking damage on purpose just to get invincibility frames so I can attack him as soon as possible. There I got another triple hit in. Getting this double hit is kind of hard because he's like still flashing from the triple hit you did in the previous phase. And at the end of the fight, you want to switch to Ye, because Ye has the flute. And right after this dungeon, you're going to be teleporting to a different spot. So because all characters do the same damage and whatnot, you want to switch to Ye whenever possible at the end of boss fights. Alright, so we got the second miracle item. Now we're going to get a little bit of a story update. And we meet the main villain of the series, which is Spring Breeze Dancin'. This guy's, it's pretty epic. So his grand plan, and the reason why he's the villain in this game, is he wants to turn Japan into a giant stage, where he's the star. And he uses something called the instant stage beam to do it. So he just wants to perform and have all of Japan just witness how great he is. And, you know, the story is definitely reflective of just how quirky and bizarre the game itself is, and how quirky the speedrun is, and I love it personally. But that was just Danson's hologram. Not actually here, he's hiding away in his secret castle or something. Alright, and with that, we are teleporting back to Oedo this time, not back to Zazen Town. As we head to Festival Village, and by association the Gourmet Submarine, in an attempt to get the third miracle item. So here I do a Ryo hover. You can actually just make this jump if you jump on the fence and then just do another jump afterwards, but it's a little bit more difficult than just doing a Ryo hover. This is kind of the safer strat. And a lot of these strats you can only do if you have a surplus of money. If I were like really low here, like I've been in runs, I've been like below 300 and I just wouldn't be able to do that strat because you need to have at least 300 in this next section. Otherwise you can't proceed. You have to like kill enemies to get the necessary amount. So I'm holding map glitch here just to get rid of the enemy. It's not actually required to despawn any of the objects. And I do let go of it because I have to perform an Abyssamaru slide. You can do the slide while holding map glitch, but like the actual inputs are really awkward. It would save a little bit of time earlier on in the run, but here probably would save nothing, even if you could do it. And because there's no music in this section, I can't change the item along with the music, so I just have Abyssomara glow a bit by charging the camera. Alright, so this is Festival Village, probably my favorite village in the game, casually. You go here 3 times as you shuttle around, getting the necessary power-ups to beat the game. Unfortunately, don't actually go into any of the houses or shops in the any % speedrun. Alright, coming up is probably the second hardest trick in the run, which is the Mount Fear Mokkori Slash. I do end up getting it in this run. It saves quite a bit. It's probably the slash that saves the most time outside of Benkei that's like actually RTA feasible. So I have to line up Abyssomara here to get the correct angle, and then I slash on the right frame, and boom, go straight through the mountain, up to the witch's hut. Again, that is 1 frame, and it is as difficult as it looks. If I do not get that trick, it's not the end of the world. I have to instead do an alternate strategy where I kind of like fall down on a slope, and store a flutter on a ladder, and then like fly up to the witch's hut. I know that sounds exciting, but don't worry, I'm going to be doing that later on in the run in another dungeon, so you can get an idea of what the backup strategy would look like. And yeah, this trick probably saves like 15 to 20 seconds. Probably more like 20 seconds, actually. So now we're in the Witch's Hut, we are paying up the 300 Ryo, and this is the end of the mandatory money requirements for the run. As we have both the cucumber and we've summoned the old man. And the old man gives us another story update. Something about car magazines, I think, and how he died in the first impact fight that we skipped. But his spirit lives on, and he's going to guide us and show us the way. It turns out he's not actually dead. I forget what the story is here. You meet him in the final dungeon of the game, not in the 8% speedrun, but in like a casual playthrough. He's like, oh, I'm not actually dead. It's just, I made that up to sound cool or something. By the way, we're out of here. And this is, obviously a mandatory dialogue trigger to progress through the game. But in order to get to the next dungeon, we have to get the power-up for Yae, excuse me. We have to get her mermaid transformation and do her mini-game. And the mermaid transformation will allow us, obviously, to swim underwater. You're kind of close to being able to skip this in the 8% run, but not quite. As far as we're aware, there's no way to access the gourmet submarine or even proceed with the beginning of the gourmet submarine unless you have the mermaid transformation. You do not use it too often in the run, but you still have to get it because there's no way to skip it. Again, there's no music here, so can't play along with the item swaps. So this mermaid game actually has a bit of tech to it, surprisingly enough. This is a pretty recent discovery, and I'm actually the one that found this. So you're supposed to like mash A as fast as you can here to climb up the waterfall. But apparently if you hold the A button down, you can mash with literally any button. And like I'm doing D-pad rotations right now to swim up the waterfall. And this allows you, I think, to input swims on every single frame instead of every other frame. And I actually get a time that's faster than the task there by doing this trick. Also, the Japanese version, you can just swim up the left side. You don't have to worry about enemies getting in your way. And that being able to input on every single frame thing probably saves like 1-2 seconds. Plus it removes mashing. I mean, you still have to mash, but it's way easier to rotate the D-pad than it is to just press A over and over and over again. So we have Mermaid, warp back to Festival, and proceed on our way. Again, holding map glitch here, otherwise there'd be some ghosts that got in your way. There's also like, even if you can't see them, there are some objects that are actually there they're just invisible. Like, there's a tree on the left of where Ye was just now. Sometimes we're running into that tree, and you get stuck on it for a little bit. It looks really dumb. Actually moved forward a bit there when I transform into Ye's mermaid form. It kind of works in a principle similar to the Abyssamaru slide, but obviously doesn't let you clip or really save too much time. So there's two different ways to move around in Ye's mermaid form. You can do these pumps with pressing the B button, or you can do light swims by pressing the A button, or mashing the A button. I do these pumps in the first section so I can hit the switch, and here I do it so I can do a glitch where I kind of clip through the top of the water here, and then just ride along on the ceiling, eventually. There you go. Instead of swimming all the way around, you can just take a direct path to the submarine. That clip's a little bit trickier than it looks. I have a setup for it. It probably only saves like 2 or 3 seconds compared to swimming around. But whenever possible, I like to show off the tricks and glitches that do not involve Abyssamaru slides, because it's kind of like the entire run. Speaking of which, I go for another trick here. I believe I'm the only one who does this. This is the Gourmet Sub Mermaid clip here. And this is like kind of random if it works or not. It requires some kind of like sub-pixel position or something, I don't know. But sometimes you can just clip through the wall, swim up here in the out of bounds area, transform, switch characters, and proceed the rest of the Gourmet Sub. If you do not do this trick, you have to do another Abyssamaru slide. And that clip is faster if you get it first try by like 3 seconds. And each time you miss it, you lose a second. And I think I got it a third try there, so it was like maybe even or a little bit time positive. Here I'm getting on my slides a little bit. So this is an interesting kill-all room. You actually use the Fire Rio to one-shot these enemies. If you use a normal weapon or a normal Rio shot, they're gonna like fall down, you have to attack them again, so use the Fire Rio to take care of them instantly. So this is one of the problems I had the most trouble with. This is chopsticks. So you can kind of see what I was going for there. You have to like line up the camera and then jump on the chopsticks, and that skips having to run on the ramen bowls. I believe I get the second one in this run, and it's definitely the hardest platforming section of the game. Like, I always think of this as like the platforming dungeon of the run. Like Ghost Toys is kind of like the overall hardest. Musically, you have to do a lot of slides. Festival has the hardest boss. This is all about the platforming. There's actually another method you can do called fast chopsticks, where you don't go through this room, but it's really hard. And here I'm able to show it off for the normal chopsticks method on the way back. You switch to the A here because you need her anyways at the end of this boss, and you're on an elevator, so why not? And we made it to the end of the Gourmet Sub. So you're skipping a lot of the areas in the 8% run. Like, that dungeon, if you play casually, is you'll go through like maybe 80% more rooms or something like that. Or I guess 5 times the many rooms. Something like that. Alright, time for dialogue skips. And again, these are all one frame. I believe I get both of them here. That skips Kitty Lily's dramatic laugh. That's so famous. And I get the second one here. This one actually saves quite a bit of time, maybe 6 or 7 seconds. The first one probably only saves like 2 or 3. Now it's time for the very famous, probably the most famous thing about this game if you only know like a few things about this game, which is the Impact song and of course the Impact fight. One possible donation incentive that's been thrown around is just to sing along with the Impact song. Now I don't sing, but could probably be arranged to have other people sing along. I'll just be quiet during it because the song's incredible. And again, because I can't sing.
がうなる俺は嫌いな鉄人だ今解き放てよ鋼の魂悪い奴らをぶち壊せ必殺必殺限界パワーだ百裂パンチ俺はゴージャスインパクト
Dash, dash, dash. What a song, dude. No matter how long I speedrun this game, I'll never get tired of listening to that song. Now, you can't skip that cutscene or whatever, it's not like I just watch it for fun. I have to sit through it each time. So in this section, you're like kind of powering up Impact, you're able to get him more health, and you can get Rio to shoot at the boss. It doesn't actually matter for this boss, because you don't actually use the nasal shot feature, which is what the Rio is used for. And health isn't going to matter, he's not going to take damage for the most part. So I just kind of do whatever. You do not want to fall down in this section though, that does lose time because you're actually holding forward here to get a little bit more speed, and if you're like tumbling, if you like get caught in the ropes or whatever, you're going to lose a little bit of time. Alright, now it's time for the first real Impact fight in the game that you actually have to do versus Thaisamba. What I understand, this is a recurring boss in the Goemon series. He's definitely in the next N64 game, Goemon's Great Adventure. So at the beginning I do a little setup here, I just punch 5 times, that allows me to hook him immediately. Otherwise it can be kind of tricky to get the timing. And you're going to see the primary method of winning the Impact fights, which is the Aura spam, or the Infinite Punch. It's really not too difficult to execute this. I'm not even sure I want to call it a glitch, but it's definitely an exploit. So in order to get that, you have to input a button command, kind of like a fighting game. It's a C up, C down, C up, and then the A button. And chain those together, it's really, again, not too difficult, but you know, if you're on pace, if you're on the run, it's not uncommon to drop it a few times. Here I do an alternate strat where I just punch him 6 times and then I go into the repeated punches. It's a little bit faster, I believe. And you kick him and then you use the laser. Typically you always finish the fight with the laser, because you have to power it up at first, and then once you use the laser, the boss is like kind of hard to like re-grab, so it's just used as a finisher move in both Impact fights. And that was a perfect fight. So with that, we're on our way. We didn't actually get a miracle item in that dialogue, some of which we skipped. Turns out that the henchman of Spring Breeze Dancing, he just like dropped it somewhere. And he's like, oops, I don't actually have it. And we're like, well, I guess we'll go get it. And he says he dropped it in Zazen Town, so we're gonna go warp there and see if we can find it. We also did a glitch at the coming out of the cutscene after the Impact fight, but we're gonna get back to that in probably 10 or 15 minutes or so, because we do have to revisit that area. So we're looking for the miracle item. We're actually going to talk to Benkei this time, for real. And this is not the dialogue you're supposed to get when you first talk, and this is the dialogue that comes later on in the game. Fortunately, the fact you didn't talk to him in the beginning doesn't screw anything up. And we're talking about where the miracle item is. He says he doesn't have it, even though he collects a lot of stuff. And to go talk to someone with a even larger collection than his. So for us, that means the creature in the center of the town, which is the Kappa, a literal Kappa. Now imagine how much fun Twitch chat's gonna have at this section. I mean, that right there is reason enough to have this game in a GDQ. Yeah, he gives us the item because we gave him the quality cucumber, which we purchased for 800 Rio earlier on in the game. And now we're off to the 4th dungeon, which is Festival Temple. So this section is mostly walking, but there's actually a little bit of tech to it. Here you have to do another slide in order to get up here. This one doesn't save too much, you could just walk around, but that's slow. You always want to take the direct path. And here I failed a clip, unfortunately. Water slides work a little bit differently than normal slides. There you can actually do an option select of sorts. Like, you don't have to actually clip through the wall there, you can just like get a little bit of height and just go up that way, which is slower. But considering no one fully understands how Abyssmar slides work, it's kind of nice to have 2 possible ways to get to this area. This section, more than any other, it's very important to have good item swaps with the music, because this music is jamming. So normally you would just continue your walk after this section as well, but there's another glitch you can do, and it's definitely one of the coolest looking glitches in the run. You can take a more direct path to the next area you have to go instead of traversing a large field. This trick is called the Abyssmar Superman, for I guess obvious reasons that you can look at it. So this trick's really interesting. You have to do a slide on a slope, and if you enter the sliding animation while in, or I guess I should say the sliding down a slope animation while doing the Abyssmar sliding animation, you go into this weird state where you're just in the Superman pose, or I guess the sliding pose, and you can just fly across the world and get a more direct line to the area you have to go. This is the last cavern we have to cross before we get to the next dungeon. And this is, I believe, the shortest dungeon, and probably the easiest as well, although, of course, there is quite a bit of tech to it. And it features the hardest boss on the run. You get a slide, jump up here. Some people don't go for this jump. This jump is called the YOLO jump. If you fall down and you don't make it across, you have to void out and then respawn back at the top. You cannot take any of the doors because you're in an area of the level you're definitely not supposed to be in yet. And like none of the doors on the bottom take you anywhere close to getting back up top. So the fastest way to get back up is to void out and respawn to the same door you came in. And that jump's not too hard, but it can definitely be tricky if you're on good pace or whatnot. This is also like the puzzle dungeon of the run. Like, I remember playing this casually, and it's like very easy to get lost here and have no idea where to go. But in speedrun setting, you just pretty much go straight to the end. Coming up is a very interesting room here, so I'm going to do a slide, and it's very important to get this slide as early as possible because I'm trying to make an elevator cycle. So I'm going to jump on the slope here, then press Z to grab the ladder, and that stores a flutter state for Abyssmar, and that allows you to just fly up to the top of the room, which is where you need to go. Like, normally you're supposed to take the elevators, and it's really slow, but you can just get this flutter state, mash the C buttons to get out of the flutter state and like get on the roof, and then you're at the top. That saves quite a bit of time over the intended strategy. And with that, we're at the boss. So this run was pretty good up until this boss. It's been pretty clean, pretty good demonstration of my abilities in Goemon. This is kind of where it starts to fall apart. Unfortunately, why this run is kind of not very good compared to the record. The record for this game, I'm not sure if I mentioned, is a low 115. My PB is a 116 at this point, so I'm about a minute off. So you have to get up here into the boss called Surami, and you're supposed to like reflect the shots back at him, but you can actually just get up here and use you're supposed to use the Fire Ryo to do additional damage compared to just using the regular weapons, but I kind of messed up his height, and sometimes the Fire Ryo just goes through him. So I'm definitely not having a good fight here. This is not indicative of all of what a clean fight should look like. At the end, I just end up giving up and just using normal attacks. Like, you can see me, like, trying to charge the Fire Ryo to hit him. I do get one shot off, but at this point, like, I've, like, messed up the fight so much, I just go for normal attacks, because I'm not really sure where I am. It's possible to overflow this boss's health by doing too much damage, and then you soft lock the game. The only way to fix it is to void out. But clipping into the boss, like where you're not supposed to be, is kind of hard because you can't really see Bisamaru, so you don't really know how to or where to time the inputs. Sometimes you won't clip, and if you don't clip right away, then Surami just starts firing plates at you, and it's just a mess. But we got the fourth and final miracle item. And here I go for the tech skip here. I believe I get it. Okay, I get it second try. I have to go in for a buffer, and then I end up getting it. And there's the... Love that. So this is Kitty Lily. She's partner to Spring Breeze Dancin'. She also wants to be a famous actress. Wants everyone to watch her perform and whatnot. Goemon and crew aren't going to let that happen. Ha 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 ha. And then she's gone. It's just a hologram. And then he just he flies off. I also love how the perspective of everyone is just so weird here. Like, was he supposed to be huge, or it was just the perspective was off? Who's to say? Also, in the Surami fight, you're supposed to end the fight with Ye. It saves a little bit of time for him to swap here. But because I botched the fight so badly, I wasn't able to do that. Alright, with all 4 miracle items, we are ready to proceed to the final dungeon in the game, which is the musical castle. It definitely has some of the best music in the game, appropriately enough. And I would argue is up there in terms of difficulty. Definitely a very dramatic finish to the run. That's the last time we see Festival Village. You can remix the item swap sounds with jumps, so you can hear the character's voice line. I like to do that from time to time. So here you're supposed to get a trick called the Impact Tech Skip. After you do the first Impact fight, you're actually holding map glitch to skip the dialogue, but you have to skip it again on the way back here. Fortunately, I just messed it up here. You're supposed to just go into the door and not even see this, or you're supposed to see like the first line of this, and that's it. But instead you get to learn about how Impact, after having helped you beat the boss, is going to go film a movie in France. And unfortunately, if you miss that, you waste like maybe 20-ish seconds. And that's not one frame, it's just kind of like awkward to open the door while letting go of map glitch in the correct time span. So you can kind of see I swapped characters on the slope there. It was kind of a bad swap, you're supposed to get a little bit more speed. But you want a Bisamaru in front because you're going to be using him for the majority of the castle. You could use him for the entire castle if you really wanted to, but I'm going to do a strat about maybe 2 minutes into it where I swap characters around. I'll explain why. So here you're supposed to climb the grates, get up top, and get a key. Of course, climbing slow, so we're just gonna do a slide. And just go ahead and jump to the top, grab the key. I switched the Yay here to set up the timing because I'm going to swap the Goemon in the next room so I can Ryo hover across the fans. Now you could do an Abyssamaru slide at the base of the platform where the key is being held, but because slides are kind of inconsistent and difficult, you want to eliminate those whenever possible. I believe optimal Abyssamaru strats here compared to this strategy is only like maybe 1 second faster. And plus, if you have Goemon in front, you can do a Ryo hover and get a more optimal line to the door. With that, we're done with Ryo for the rest of the game. No more hovers. Here, I believe, is where I really start choking everything. I think I get the slide, but then I don't think I have it, so I back out of it. That's definitely not what you want to see. And I'm getting it somewhat quickly right after, though. A little bit more platforming, which is it's kind of harder than it looks. It's possible to just like clip through the fans there if you're a little bit slow. Maybe forget which room you're going into. We see a rare use of the intended strata, or the intended usage of Mini Abyssamaru. We're going to slide back into the cubby, get out of bounds, and hop back up top. You do not want to go in that door. That was kind of below Abyssamaru there. If you go back in that door is blocked, and you have to go back around to the cubby and go up top again. So you really want to avoid accidentally going in that door, which is very easy to do. This is the final slide of the first part of Musical Castle. Unfortunately, I get blocked, and I end up getting blocked for quite a while here, and just end up missing slides. I changed my strategy around a bit following this run to increase consistency, but I'm not even getting blocked here. I'm just straight up not sliding because I can't do the inputs. Again, you know, this is at the end of the run. This was PB pace for me by like over a minute. So I ended up taking the intended strategy, not even doing the slide, just throwing away all the time from even trying to go for it, and just swimming around. It's kind of sad. But we're not done yet. It's time for another slide, which I messed up, man. I was really blowing it here. Through the hedges, you're supposed to go talk to the wise man in this area and power up your weapons yet again. You end up not powering your weapons up even a single time. Like, you're supposed to power them up to level 2, then to level 3. But you don't have to do any of that. You slide straight to the end. This is definitely one of the best songs in the game. This is the final slide. Skips pretty much the entirety of the second half musical dungeon, or musical castle. Again, if you want to see all the rooms that aren't featured in Sputum, I highly recommend playing this game casually. It's an amazing casual, amazing race game too, if you're into that. My blind race, I wasn't really blind, but mostly blind race, time ended up being like 8 hours or so. It's the final platformer of the game. This is a tough one to do. If you're kind of slow here, won't be able to make this cycle on the rotating room, and you'll fall in the hole. But if you're quick enough, you can just jump up there and just head straight across. Alright, this is the final tech skip in the game, and unfortunately it's the one that saves the most time. And I thought I got it in this run, and that looked good, but unfortunately it was about 1 frame off. So you have to sit through all this dialogue. So all this dialogue you're seeing here can just be straight up skipped if I had pressed start 1 frame later. You just see the time ticking away in the bottom right. And dialogue's done. So, in the story, Spring Breeze Dancing and Kitty Lily, like, you made it through their final dungeon, like, you're here to stop them, and like, no, we have one last trick up our sleeves. we're gonna turn you into die-hard fans via this performance of ours. This is Gorgeous My Stage. Beautiful, just beautiful. And then afterwards, Goemon and Kerr like, what are they doing? It's like, we're here to stop them. We're not going to become their diehard fans. And I think in the dialogues, Abyssmar was like, actually, you know what? I'm on their side. I'm going to join them. And Goemon's like, no, it's not time for that. We have to go stop them. Let's summon Impact. The castle's blowing up. Let's finish the fight. Yeah, this is the second Impact sequence in the run. Third in the game. Even though you had Abyssmar in front, it automatically switches to Goemon, of course, because he's the main character. And I guess the developers want to have the main character in front for this one. So if you can't understand Japanese, the lyrics to this are pretty incredible. It's basically talking about how great Impact is, about how gorgeous he is. I have a steel body, something like that. Alright, so this is the final Impact grind. You do need a Rio for the upcoming section, but you don't really need too much. But of course the goal here is to get the optimal amount of Rio, which is 420. But I don't think I've ever been able to successfully do that in a real run. It's kind of like hard to kill the same amount of enemies each time. And it's there, I just jumped straight into a hole. Lost a little bit of time. And if you fall down, it's really hard to get 420 Rio. But it's kind of great that even in these sections that don't really impact the speedrun too much, there's always little things you can do to just make it interesting. You can see there I was well short of 420. Unbelievable. Alright, but enough of that. It's time for the final boss sequence. This is a two-parter. First going to be fighting Spring Breeze Dancing and Kitty Lily's ship, the Balbera. And this is definitely, I would say, the hardest Impact fight, at least for me. So the way this fight works is you have to damage the core. Now the core opens up at the beginning of the fight automatically, and you have to mash like crazy to do damage. Like the faster you can mash, the more damage you do, and the more time you save. So I'm really focusing on the mash here. But you can't one-shot it, unfortunately. So you have to destroy all these little peach ships in order to get the ship to open up again. And where the peach ships go and where they spawn is random. And I'm really not having a good time here. I ended up destroying the peach ships somehow, and it opens back up again. So I hit it with the laser, and I think it closes again? Yeah, this is not what's supposed to happen. But somehow there's only one peach ship alive? I was actually really confused when this happened to me in the run, because normally it doesn't open at all if there's a peach ship alive. But for some reason it did, and I'm able to finish the boss off somewhat quickly as a backup. If you miss all the ships repeatedly, like you're automatically going to be forced to target other parts of the Balbera ship, and it's really slow. And it's kind of hard to practice again because it's random. And when you load a save from a save file, it's always going to have the same RNG, at least I believe so. So again, it's kind of tricky to just know how it works. And it's time for the final boss, Detole. Where he spawns initially is random. I got kind of bad luck there. And it's time for the climactic final boss, where you have to chain the infinite punch over and over and over and over and over and over and over again until he is dead. This is kind of why I refer to the game as Go-Go's Bizarre Adventure, because the Aura is king here. I just love that this is like the optimal strat for the speedrun, just over and over and over again. And it's kind of climactic too, because like, oh, you know, is it gonna drop? Is it gonna just miss input? It's even possible to miss the laser here and just waste like maybe 5 or 10 seconds as the boss has to like reposition and whatnot. But I ended up getting a perfect final boss fight, so that's good. So this is the end of the run, but timing stops about a minute later for whatever reason. I guess it's just how the first runners of this game decide to do it. You could stop timing here potentially in a GDQ run, there's no more gameplay, but just for accurate timing, you'd probably want to let the last cutscene play out. Basically, Spring Breeze Dance is saying that even though you beat me, I still have the instant stage beam, I'm going to become a great star, there's nothing you can do, Fernandez. He calls Goemon Fernandez throughout the run, because he just likes to call people whatever he feels like calling people. He calls Bismaru Antonio, I think. But Goemon's like, no man, I'm Goemon, not Fernandez. And he fires the laser and finishes off Spring Breeze Dance and Kitty Lily for good. And timing stops when the screen's fully white. You get a 1:17.06. So, you know, a solid run. Like I said, my PB is a little bit faster than this, but I would definitely be happy with this in a marathon run. I've been getting somewhat consistent times. I mostly do no resets once I'm past Benkei anyways. And I almost always get sub 120. The estimate I would offer for this game would probably be 125 though, just because this game unfortunately is prone to crashing in some spots. It's very rare, but it will happen. And a crash can cost anywhere from like, you know, 3 to 5 minutes. So a 125 estimate would be pretty safe. And also, I will have backup saves if it does crash. Like I said, I wouldn't be saving manually throughout the run. That would take up too much time. But I have all the backup saves you can possibly have on my EverDrive, and I can just load them into the controller pack if need be. I'm not sure if EverDrive would be okay for a GDQ. I'd also be able to play this game with a real card because I did order one. And if that was the case, I'd just have to have multiple memory cards with backup saves. Because you can only have 3 normally. But other than just not getting tricks or the game crashing, it's pretty easy to consistently get sub 120 at a high level. I guess if you care about the story at this point, apparently a town was abducted in the hedge portion of the musical castle section. That was actually a town that was flown up to the sky, but it just came back down to Earth because when we destroyed the instant stage beam, that's how that works apparently. And now there's a bunch of girls to greet Goemon and Bismaru. And Goemon here thinks it's like, oh wow, all these girls are here to see us because we're huge heroes because we just destroyed Spring Breeze Dance and Kitty Lily. And we saved Japan. And like here, line up for autographs, girls. Like line up for autographs, line up for kisses. Oh, Bismaru, you're a classic. Of course, Ye is a little bit skeptical of all this. It doesn't look like they're here to get autographs. And it turns out that all the girls in Japan actually wanted Spring Breeze Dance and Kay Lily to be huge stars because they were big fans. So Goemon's not actually the hero after all. He just ruined everything. And the final line is Abysmara saying we're idiots. It's a great way to end the story of this game. Also, in the credits, you saw the fourth character that's not used in the speedrun. Give you a preview of what he looked like. And the credits sequence is also like really good. Like the song's good, and you get like a snapshot journey of all the things you end up not doing in the speedrun because you skip everything. Like there you saw the chain pipe, and here you see a section of the game you don't even go to. This is what Mount Fuji looks like. Playing as a character, again, you don't see in the speedrun. It's all great. This would probably be not featured in AGDQ because moving on to the next game. But yeah, that is my commentated run of my 117.06. I would really love to run this game if the other games I submit do not get in. I think it's a really, really, really strong marathon game. I ran this game for JRTA 3 last year, and it was pretty well received. I think I'm qualified enough to do it. There are people with faster times than me, of course, but I do not think they're submitting. But they might change their minds. We'll see. And this game hasn't been featured since, I believe, SGDQ 2014. And it's just not only a great speedrun, it's a great marathon game. Like, there was so much stuff to talk about. I think it was like only in the long walking sequences where there was really nothing going on. So yeah, no shortage of stuff to talk about. Plenty of glitches, great music, great tech, and it's Goemon, dude. It definitely appealed to the Japanese viewer base because Japan loves Goemon. And I think everyone would love Goemon if they gave it a chance. Yeah, I guess I'll just let the credits play out. I guess my commentary is done. Thank you for watching. Even if you're not a GDQ staff watching this for submission review, hopefully you learned a little bit about Goemon, about the speedrun, because I don't really talk about everything that's going on just because there's so much going on in actual runs. And yeah, that's it. Play Goemon. It's a great game. Yeah, I'm out. Thank you for watching, and enjoy the rest of the credits. See ya! Purazuma!